If you're looking at an empty wallet, your social life is in shambles, and your retina surf from last night, yeah, you're probably suffering from review season. That's right, it's that magical time of the year when every publisher is seemingly rushing to release their games before the fiscal year is over, and thus leaving us gamers scrambling to play, I don't know, Hi-Fi Rush, Like a Dragon Ishin, Wild Hearts, Sons of the Forest, and on it goes. So if you're having a hard time keeping up with everything, you've come to the right place, where we talk about all the co-op games that came out last month, what co-op games are coming out in the next month, and any co-op news in between. That's right, it's the co-op monthly for February. Let's get started.
Blanc was one of the first real co-op games of 2023, and it's hit right around where I personally was expecting it to hit. It's sitting in the low 70s on OpenCritic and has a mixed user score on Steam. It's, again, not too surprising to me. It's just a smaller experience focused on atmosphere and environmental puzzles. I'd say if you want to play a game with a non-gamer, still consider it, just don't expect it to necessarily knock your socks off. Hellcard is a unique co-op deck-building roguelike game that was released into early access last month. I want to mention it due to its very positive 88% score on Steam, and that this is a subgenre within a subgenre, so it's nice to see one hit well. It's hard to tell what's going on here, and the Steam page doesn't describe it well at all, but it has something to do with monster placement? Their words on the Steam page, not mine. Check it out on PC with your mates if that means anything to you. I wanted to give a quick mention of a little indie I found that released on the 16th, Knights of Braveland. It's got a mostly positive user score and looks like it's hitting some Castle Crasher vibes. People tend to mention that game a lot around here in the comments, so I offer this game up as your next cooperative beat 'em up. Now let's talk about a real banger. Whipping around like crazy, what is happening? The tail, let's go, dude.
Let's go, dude.
I was whipping like a madman.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. Oh no! You didn't see that. I'm climbing up. It's happening.
Oh my god.
I'm sealing it. It's working.
Oh dang, dude, that's so cool.
I did it. That was crazy, dude. Wild Hearts is the first major co-op title released in the year, and it has lived up to our hype. Sitting around an 80 on OpenCritic really doesn't do it justice, because we are loving this in co-op. The Katakuri system really does make this a standout title among its contemporaries, and is completely enhanced when you play with your friends. Expect a full review from us in the next month. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you should not be playing this on PC right now. It is terribly optimized and not worth it until you've heard explicitly it's working well there. In the meantime, we can assure you that PS5 is doing just fine. If you're like me and you're one of the 13 people waiting for a We Play Tanks mode sequel, I've got good news. We Tanks came out in early access on the 22nd, has a very positive 95% on Steam, and is everything I could have wanted it to be. 4-player local co-op, a robust map editor, a survival mode, and eventually a PvP mode. Plus, you can play remote play if you want to hook up online. I actually went out of my way to ask Gabe to ask the developers for keys, because I have a real soft spot for the original game, so maybe expect some content from us on this in the future, who knows. Grim Guardian's Demon Purge from Inti Creates is another attempt at capturing that retro Castlevania magic. Its gimmick is there's 2 sisters to play as, one focused on short range and one on long range. You can play solo and switch between the two, or you could play in co-op, where you each get to play as a sister. Reviews are good at a 73 on OpenCritic and a mostly positive on Steam, but I struggled to find any review that actually took advantage of the co-op, a big issue in this industry, with most just alluding to the fact that you can and that it would be fun. So if you're gonna play with friends, just buy at your own risk. I imagine it's more fun, but I can't say for sure. Kirby's Return to Dreamland has hit well with critics with a nice clean 80 on OpenCritic. It's what you'd expect out of a Wii-era remake, 2D platforming, mostly focused on a younger crowd, but there's nothing inherently wrong with that as long as you know it going in. If you've got non-gamers or younger gamers to play with, this could be a great pickup, simple as that. Kerbal Space Program 2, the much-anticipated sequel for a very hardcore audience, finally released into early access. I am talking aerospace engineering hardcore, because that's what this is simulating, but with aliens. Unfortunately, it looks like you should probably wait to pick this up if this is your thing. It's got poor performance and bug issues, contributing to its mixed user score on Steam. Sorry guys. Sons of the Forest is finally playable, albeit not in the way that we expected it to. A very last minute pivot from a full launch to an early access launch means we don't have full reviews, but things are looking good. A very positive Steam user score bodes well, as well with the fact that it literally broke the Steam store for a minute there. That's crazy. Like I said, critics will be mum until full release, but both Polygon and Before You Buy had positive sentiments if you want to check those things out. We're going to put out a how-to style video for this one. Maybe we already have, but don't expect our full review until it's in 1.0. Unfortunately, we just gotta prioritize a couple other games for now. Destiny 2 Lightfall is going to release the day this video comes out, so we'll just have to mention it next month in our review roundup. If you're wondering, we probably won't get to hop in here like we did last year with Witch Queen. Same with Sons of the Forest, we just have to prioritize other projects. Congrats to the rest of the community though. You get to sacrifice another 100 hours at the altar of the Traveler.
After the onslaught of releases this month, March is at least slowing down a little bit, but that doesn't mean we're not getting some great co-op games next month. If you've been keeping up with our streams, you'd know that we are hooked on a little game called Patch Quest. This is a crazy blend of genres. It's a Metroidvania meets roguelite meets bullet hell meets monster taming. Yeah, and it works surprisingly well in local co-op. Up to this point, it's been on early access, but it's finally releasing in full on March 2nd, exclusively on PC. We'll actually be putting together a review for this as soon as we can. We got a lot going on, again, review season, but you should know this now, Patch Quest is very much worth your time. Releasing the same day as Patch Quest, we'll get a quirky party game called King of the Castle. Not your typical co-op game per se, but it looks pretty cool and it's published by Team 17. It's a narrative game where you and your friends can choose to help the chosen king player, or you can scheme to seize the throne for yourself. Your friends don't have to own the game, they can simply play through an app on their phones, which is always nice to have. It definitely fits into that party game genre, but there's a little bit more depth here, so I felt like shouting it out. King of the Castle will be out on March 2nd, exclusively on PC. And just a day after that, we are getting the release of WoLong Fallen Dynasty on March 3rd. One of our greatest regrets as co-op gamers is never making time for the Neo games. But we're making good on that by playing WoLong, another Souls-like from the brilliant minds of Team Ninja. We're pretty stoked for this, but if you're not sold on it, you can play the demo that went live on the 24th. Progress carries over to the full game too, in case you end up loving it, which you probably will. WoLong Fallen Dynasty will feature 2-player online co-op when it launches on all platforms bar the Switch. Listen, I'm not gonna say that DC's Justice League Cosmic Chaos is this year's Ryan's Rescue Squad, because that game was a masterpiece, so I'll just say this. Cosmic Chaos looks like a great family co-op game, especially if you're a fan of DC. In 2-player local co-op, you and a friend can team up as Batman, Wonder Woman, or Superman to take on classic villains like Clayface or Starro in a fun open-world action game. DC's Justice League Cosmic Chaos will release on March 10th for every platform, old gen, new gen, the whole lot. While Valheim is still in early access, it's making a pretty big move to consoles by coming to Xbox and Game Pass as part of their game preview program. Honestly, this is awesome news. Back before we had PCs, we always felt left out when we couldn't try a great early access game, so it's cool to see this come into consoles so early and especially to Game Pass. Quick refresher, Valheim is a co-op survival game for up to 10 players and it'll be available on Xbox on March 14th. So at this point, there's an Overcooked-like game for pretty much everything. Landscaping, moving, restaurant management, but there's a niche that hasn't yet been filled up until now. An Overcooked-like game for architecture enthusiasts. That sounded cooler in my head. If that sounds like you, then you're bound to love Buildest. Buildest lets you build a variety of architectural styles with up to 3 friends in local and online co-op. It's due to launch on March 24th, exclusively on PC, and is launching onto early access. Rounding out our upcoming game section is Crime Boss Rockay City, coming in on March 28th. Crime Boss is billed as an organized crime game, go figure, and it'll feature a star-studded cast with the likes of Chuck Norris and Danny Trejo voicing characters among many others. It'll feature 4-player online co-op as you can get into all sorts of unsavory business. Even though the reveal trailer is kinda cringe, I'm at least interested to see how this will play out. It's launching exclusively on the Epic Store, followed by PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series console releases later this year.
Let's start the news section off with the games that are already available. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but over time, Back 4 Blood has become a top-notch horde shooter. And while we knew this day would come, I'm sad to hear the news that Turtle Rock is finished making content for the title. They finished their DLC roadmap, and they never promised us a live service title. So goodbye to Back 4 Blood. Props to the team on how well they did to make a comeback despite a really rocky launch. Enough of that sappy Back 4 Blood nonsense. I need you to pause this video for a PSA. I've absolutely done everything in my power to get this video out before the end of February, because Evil Dead is available on PS Plus this month and is 100% worth a download. I mention this not just because we loved our experience with a full squad of 5, but newsflash, it just got a fancy Battle Royale mode that just released this month. It may not technically be co-op, but it's a great time with friends, so get your squad to download the game ASAP. We can wait. One news story we missed last month that we want to talk about here is Warhammer 40k Darkside's Xbox port delay and their pause of premium cosmetics. The CEO of developer Fatshark came out to apologize for the rough launch date of the title, and we honestly couldn't agree more. Now, if you're keeping track, you might be thinking, Mr. Co-op Bro, didn't you say Warhammer was a top 10 co-op game for 2022? To which I say yes, we did, and I stand by that. The gameplay, from a co-op perspective, is about as good as it gets in the horde shooter subgenre. But the surrounding pieces of the game, namely progression, cosmetics, and story, are pretty rough, which was what the CEO was recognizing here. We're glad to see that because the potential of this title should be seen through to the end.
Got a lot to talk about in the second half of the news, so I'm gonna keep things a little light to get through most of it, but let's jump right in here. How to Escape is a new escape-like, yeah, that's a thing now, that got announced earlier in the month. The twist here is that one player plays on console or PC while the second player is providing crucial information by playing on their phone through a dedicated app. If How to Escape sounds up your alley, you can check it out on PS5 and PC when it launches sometime this year. Team Nintendo had their first Direct of the year, and while it was light on co-op news, we did get a release date for Disney Illusion Island, which is that cool 4-player couch co-op platformer that we're actually kind of excited for. The game continues to look super wholesome, and even the boss fight that they showed off looked kinda sick actually. But we'll have to wait till summer to jump in when Disney Illusion Island releases on July 28th for the Nintendo Switch. Moving along, IGN held their IGN Fan Fest this month, which turned out to be a lot bigger than either of us were expecting. One of the biggest highlights for us was the news that Diablo 4's beta will kick off in March. The team will run 2 open beta weekends for current and last-gen PlayStation and Xbox consoles as well as PC. The first weekend is for pre-orders only and runs from March 17th to the 19th, while the following weekend, March 24th to the 26th, will be available to everybody, and I for one am very excited to try this one out. We got yet another look at Redfall during IGN's FanFest with not only an extended gameplay trailer, but also some direct questions answered from Ben Horn, the production director on the game. Here's some of the more juicy details that we learned. Since Redfall is an open world game, you'll be able to explore the map in multiplayer completely untethered from your friends or the host. However, you might not want to stray too far from the pack as you gain a buff when you're in close proximity to each other, a mechanic that sounds eerily similar to the one in Warhammer 40k Darktide. One interesting tidbit is that Redfall looks to be more akin to something like Far Cry than a mission-based game like Darktide or Left 4 Dead. I'm wondering how that'll affect replayability or how much game there is to experience post-campaign. But we're slowly peeling back the layers on Redfall, and it continues to be one of the most interesting co-op games of the year. For the King 2 also got some love at IGN FanFest, and while we still don't have a release date, the game continues to look like a great sequel. One thing you can spot in this trailer that we haven't seen before is the addition of a wolf companion, and maybe some other companions? That sounds really cool, and I could totally see that mechanic spicing up the combat. Just give us a release date already, please. Our last FanFest news bite comes from a new trailer for the upcoming Starship Troopers Extermination game. The game will feature 12-player co-op and it's inspired by the 1997 classic, of course. This trailer in particular shows off the assault unit, heavy infantry, and medic classes. And I might be showing my age here, but I've never seen the movie, so I can't say how accurate any of this is. But at least it looks pretty fun, so I'm hoping we get a release date soon for all you Starship Trooper fans out there. We've been keeping a keen eye on Raven's Watch, and it finally got an early access release date for April 6th. Even with IGN FanFest and a Nintendo Direct, not gonna lie, this was the news I was most hyped about. This is a roguelike co-op game coming from the team behind Curse of the Dead Gods, which that alone is worth getting very excited about. The game will feature 4-player online where each character in the game is a dark twist on a classic fable like Beowulf or Little Red Riding Hood. We'll be diving into this one as soon as it launches, and we couldn't be more excited for it. Well, after both Xbox and Nintendo had their directs, it was time for Sony to deliver the goods with their State of Play last week. There's a big focus on Suicide Squad, but let's save that for the end because we did get a pretty cool announcement here, with Baldur's Gate 3 finally getting a firm release date for August 31st. Weird little tidbit here though, it's coming out for PlayStation and PC, but not Xbox, at least not yet. Yeah, that's a dirty move, Uncle Jim. We got our first update on Wayfinder since its reveal at the Game Awards, and it's an exciting bit of news since there's a closed beta coming to PC and PlayStation on February 28th before the game launches onto early access in May. Wayfinders is an MMO light coming from the team behind the excellent Ruined King, a League of Legends story, so if you're into MMOs, this is definitely one to watch. And finally, we got to see Suicide Squad in all its ridiculously bombastic action. There's a lot to unpack here. For one, the trailer showed off a lot of aerial combat as each character is able to launch into the air, be it through a jetpack, teleporter, or grappling hook. We also got to look at the gunplay and how this is a lot more of a looter shooter than any of us thought. Each character will have their own unique kit, but also have access to all the same types of guns. And lastly, we got some sneak peeks at the RPG menus, which showed off gear scores, stats, and other loot shooter conventions. On our first watch, and even now, we're cautiously optimistic. The action is definitely different from Rocksteady's own Arkham series, but that doesn't have to be bad. It looks very arcadey, and we think that could be a lot of fun. Now, the whole looter shooter elements do have us a bit worried after how Avengers tried and failed to make any of that work. Hopefully we get some deep dives into these parts of the game. Till then, well, at least Flash was kind of funny.
As always, thanks for watching, guys. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed your time here, maybe hit that like button, maybe comment your favorite news story, maybe subscribe and hit that notification bell. I don't know, you decide. In the meantime, we're also going to be hitting up a lot of different pieces of content with a how-to video for WoLong, a how-to video for Sons of the Forest, maybe even a couple reviews this month. Who knows? If you want to keep up to date, check out all of our socials to do that. We'll also be streaming both Wild Hearts and Sons of the Forest and WoLong in the next month or so. Again, thanks so much. We'll catch you next time on another episode of The Co-op Bros.